PS1 was a JRPG powerhouse. Square Enix released 3 Final Fantasies, the Parasite Eve series, Brave Fencer Musashi, Capcom released Breath of Fire 3 and 4, we have one-offs like Legend of Legaia and Legend of Dragoon, and even famous pachinko machine owner and operator Konami made the first 2 Suikoden games. But Enix had something they wanted to add to the equation as well. No, not Dragon Quest VII, I'm talking about Star Ocean: The Second Evolution. Wait, that's a sequel. So what came first? Well, obviously, Star Ocean. Star Ocean! We never got that game. So let's go over the remake, Star Ocean First Departure for the PSP.
SD-346. An unknown power threatens to hurl us into a new age of civilization. Is it the will of the gods, or just the whimsy of fate? Whatever it is, the human race continues to advance into the great unknown, into what they called the Star Ocean.
In the beginning, there was the Star Ocean. Well, actually in the beginning there was Tales of Fantasia by a group named Wolf Team, a Namco-published game that went on to span an immense series of popular JRPGs. But not all of the members of Wolf Team were pleased with the direction that Namco forced them to take with Tales of Fantasia, which led to some members splitting off and forming Tri-Ace. While continuing with the much more active battle style and battle skill system, Tri-Ace chose a different path amongst the stars. Tri-Ace has stated that Star Trek was a major influence in the Star Ocean series, and that influence shines brightly right in your face from the very beginning. Not only is there a Federation, but they even follow the Prime Directive, called the Underdeveloped Planetary Preservation Pact. I think Picard chose the right name. Prime Directive is much less of a mouthful. Now, I of course didn't play the original version of Star Ocean, as it never came out in America. Our first Star Ocean game, Star Ocean: The Second Story, was released here on the original PlayStation in 1999, 3 years after the original Super Famicom game. Star Ocean First Departure is a PSP remake of that original Super Famicom game, remade in an enhanced version of Second Story's engine. All the gameplay advances made for Second Story, updated for 2008 and wrapped in the original game story. Where could you possibly go wrong? The presentation of First Departure is something that I can definitely get behind. 2D sprites on great looking PS1 style backgrounds and 3D battlefields. The characters are very well designed, and I quickly grew attached to all of the members of my party due to the personal actions you can do throughout the game. The soundtrack was redone, and while I can't say it blew me away, it was still very enjoyable. And the anime intro was a really fun way to kick off interest in the game. While you fight on a 3D battlefield, both your party members and the enemies are all 2D sprites. Well drawn, but very limited in scope. When so much of the game is spent getting lost in the labyrinth-style dungeons, fighting the same palette swap monsters, it can get pretty boring. To add to the repetitiveness of battle, you're limited to only equipping 2 skills per character, and you only control 1 character in battle, although you can switch at any time. For most of the game, I had little to no incentive to switch characters, as Roddick, the main character, easily dispatched most foes. Later on in your journey, when monsters can inflict you with paralysis and stone are more common, I began to switch characters frequently, so I could cure Roddick and get back to wailing on them with my sword. I brooded my way through the game using a party of 3 physical attackers and a healer, and never really had much trouble. If you do use a magic user, called Symbologist in this series, once you reach higher levels, battles slow down due to their spells pausing the action during their animation. You'll even run into this annoyance with your healers' higher level spells, and it can get tiring quickly. For starters, the spells aren't that cool looking, and they also do not do enough damage to make up for the delay. Your character's regular 3-strike combo combined with higher levels and the right equipment can easily outclass any spell damage in a much shorter time frame. Along with gaining the normal RPG stat boosts when you gain levels, you also gain skill points. These points can be allocated to a wide berth of skills that vary from combat buffs and stat increases to the ability to self-publish fanfiction. These skills can increase the speed of battle as well as give your characters the ability to create some of the strongest equipment in the game. There are 13 characters in the game, but you can only recruit 8 in any given playthrough. 4 characters are mandatory to have for the story, so for you to be able to experience all of the characters and their individual endings, you would need to play through the game 3 times. Unfortunately, Square Enix and Triace have not made this the easiest thing to accomplish. Neither First Departure nor the sequel Second Evolution are available on the PSN. Because of this, you can only play these games on the physical UMD disc on a PSP. For the purposes of this video, that's exactly what I did. But I did use a cord to be able to display the game on a TV. I was pleasantly surprised with the quality of the game's voice acting. With the exception of Ronix, one of the required characters, all the characters I recruited had good voice acting that fit the character and did not distract from the game. Ronix, while I did still like him as a character, his voice just doesn't really fit him, and it seems like it was meant for a much older version of him. A huge part of why I fell in love with this game and the characters are the personal actions I mentioned earlier. When going to towns, you'll normally have the option to trigger a PA, which will show your party enter the town and go their separate ways. This allows you to go and find each character in a different part of town, and sometimes when you find them, a short scene will trigger. Some of these scenes are even triggered by others and can lead to opening up side quests, as well as the only mode of transportation other than walking around or a quick boat ride. And this is something that gets on my nerves quite a bit. There's only one mode of transportation, a bunny acquired through a string of PAs with one of the optional characters. There's an immense amount of backtracking in the game, and a faster mode of transportation than walking would have been nice to obtain, but by the time I earned it, it was more of a novelty than a boon. I will add though, with the inclusion of the PAs in a world that actually feels alive, I didn't really mind the backtracking, just the slow pace of walking. From a gameplay experience and aesthetic view, this is a top-notch JRPG that deserves to be added to anyone's playlist. It took me about 30 hours to play through the game and complete everything possible with the characters I recruited, although I do tend to play a lot slower than most. What about that story? Here's where, if you don't want to be spoiled, you can click here and be fast-forwarded in time. If not, and you're going to stick around, here we go. You begin the game playing as Roddick, Millie, and Dorn, 3 members of a local defense force on an underdeveloped planet called Roke. The very beginning is a little slow, but it quickly picks up when you learn of a disease that is causing Rokians to turn to stone. You travel to the top of a nearby mountain hoping to find a cure, and here's where your whole world gets turned upside down. At the top of the mountain, you encounter Ilya and Ronix, 2 mandatory party members who, unlike you, are not from Roke, but are in fact members of the Federation from planet Earth. Following this is a rapid succession of events where you leave Roke, find out Dorn has contracted the stone disease, are told the only way to cure the disease is to find the original host, who just so happened to have died 300 years ago, and then travel back in time 300 years. During the time travel, your party is split up, although the 4 members who traveled back in the past with you will eventually rejoin each other. It's actually pretty neat the way it works out. Depending on who you recruit throughout your journey, you will meet up with the other members at different times. In my game, I didn't meet back up with Millie until the last city, where if I had recruited different members, I could have gotten her much earlier. On Roke, you immediately have Roddick and Ilya in your main party, and they will travel the world together in search of Ronix and Millie, as well as your search for the Archfiend, so you can cure Dorn and the rest of Roke in your home time period. After gathering your party members, both the people who belong to the time period you're visiting, and those who journeyed there with you, as well as at least one person who we'll get into a lot more as this series continues, you then get to begin your backtracking to the varying kingdoms you've already visited. You'll eventually visit the demon world and face off with Asmodeus the Archfiend. Instead of a demon, you find an alien from the very species that poisoned Roke and led to this whole adventure. On his defeat, a group of soldiers show up, and you get the sample of blood and return to the future. Your present, stardate 346. The ending is a rush of events, much like the beginning, which is slightly disappointing. After some quick scenes, you wind up on the enemy's home planet, Fargate, and after a couple of quick dungeons, you find yourself face to face with the final big bad and win the game. Such a good build-up with a quick and slightly empty ending. But if you do all the PAs with your team and get your relationships up, you'll get a quick ending for each character, including one with Ilya and Ronix that leads to them finally getting together, which may just get touched on next time on Star Ocean 2nd Evolution. I really enjoyed my time with First Departure, especially with the characters. I really just fell in love with them from the outset. Roddick, Millie, even Dorn that you just have for a little while, I loved them all. I really look forward to getting to play through the game again in the future and experience some of those characters that I missed on this playthrough. That's it for today for Star Ocean First Departure. Join me next time when we go over Star Ocean the 2nd Evolution. Not a sequel to the movie Evolution with David Duchovny and William Scott, or whatever his name is. Put head and shoulders in Alien. You know, the shampoo. I liked it.
What was that cute thing you were riding on, Roddick? Bunny! He's stubby and chubbly and bubbly and